My name is Joanna Pelletier, and I'm 34 years old. I've been a licensed electrician for 11 years. Not because I couldn't find something more polished, more office appropriate, more whatever it is people mean when they say a real career. I have a college diploma. I can read a room. I know which fork to use at a dinner table. I chose this trade because I'm good at it, because it pays well, and because at the end of every job I can flip a switch and watch a building come alive. My hands have burns on them from wire stripping. My boots are steel-toed and have seen better days. I carry a multimeter in my jacket pocket the way other women carry lip balm, and I have never once been ashamed of any of it. Until my sister made me feel like I should be. It was a Tuesday evening in late February when she called. I was driving home from a commercial job site in Mississauga, still in my high-vis vest, radio on low, windows fogged from the cold. I picked up expecting her usual chatter, maybe something about her upcoming wedding, maybe asking whether I'd found a dress yet, maybe venting about the caterer. Instead, there was a silence on the line, the kind that means whatever comes next has been sitting in someone's mouth for longer than it should have. "So, I need to talk to you about the bridal shower," she said. I told her I'd already RSVP'd. I'd even picked up a gift. Another silence. "Here's the thing," she said, and her voice went careful in a way that made my stomach drop. "A lot of my guests, Spencer's family especially, they're very professional. His mom's a partner at a law firm, his aunt works in finance. His cousins all went to Queens or Western." She paused. "I just think it might be a little awkward. You showing up in, and people asking what you do." I said nothing. I let her fill the silence. "I just don't want it to be weird for you," she added. "You know how those things can get. People making conversation, talking about their work, and then it just gets uncomfortable for everyone." I remember exactly where I was when she said that. Stopped at a red light on the QEW, a transport truck idling beside me, sleet coming down sideways. I watched the wipers go back and forth for a few seconds. "I understand," I said. And I hung up. I sat in my driveway for a long time after I got home. The engine ticked as it cooled. My neighbor's porch light was on across the street, throwing a yellow circle onto the snow. I watched it until I could breathe normally again. What she said, stripped down to its core, was this: "Your presence embarrasses me. The life you've built with your own two hands is something I'd rather hide from the people I'm trying to impress. There's a specific kind of hurt that comes from being made to feel like a liability by someone who should know better. It's not loud. It doesn't make you want to scream. It settles somewhere low in your chest and sits there, heavy and quiet." I didn't call anyone that night. My friend from the trade, Lindsay, would have driven over immediately and said exactly what I needed to hear, and also several things that would have made the situation considerably worse. My dad would have tried to play peacemaker and ended up making me feel worse by explaining my sister's perspective. So I just sat with it. I let myself feel the full weight of it before I decided anything. What nobody in my family knew, what I hadn't told a single person yet, was that 3 weeks earlier I had passed my Red Seal certification exam. For anyone outside the trade, here's what that means. It's the interprovincial standard, the gold standard for journeypersons in Canada. You can work anywhere in the country with it. Contractors pursue it for years. I'd been studying for 18 months while working full-time, and I'd passed on my first attempt. Beyond that, I'd been quietly in talks with my foreman about being brought on as a project lead for a major federal infrastructure contract. New electrical systems for a GO Transit expansion. The kind of contract that doesn't come along often. The kind that, if it went through, would mean I was no longer an electrician on someone else's crew. I'd be the one other people answered to. I hadn't said anything, because I wanted to wait until everything was in writing. I'd planned to announce it at the bridal shower, actually. I'd imagined it as a nice moment, my sister's celebration, good news from me, everyone happy together. But she'd taken that from me. So I decided to wait and see what 5 days would teach her. The bridal shower was on a Saturday in March, held at a private dining room in a hotel in downtown Toronto. I know this because my mother described it to me afterward in excruciating, stumbling detail, tripping over herself, trying to explain how everything had unraveled. Spencer's mother was there, his aunt, 3 cousins. Several of my sister's co-workers from the marketing agency where she worked. And, as my mother would tell me later, one guest my sister had apparently forgotten to properly research, a woman named Dr. Renata. I'm only using her last name because it matters to the story. Dr. Renata Osei Bonsu, the mother of one of my sister's colleagues, who had been invited as a +1. Osei Bonsu is not a physician. The doctor is a PhD in electrical engineering. She spent 20 years in academia before moving into the private sector, where she now sits on the board of one of the largest electrical infrastructure firms in Ontario. Her company had been one of the bidders on the GO Transit contract I was being considered for as project lead. At some point during the shower, over mimosas and mini quitches, my mother said, someone asked the inevitable round-the-table question about what everyone did for work. It got to my mother, who mentioned she had 2 daughters. Someone asked about both of them. My mother said my sister worked in marketing, which went over well, and then said her other daughter was an electrician. Spencer's aunt made a small sound. Not quite a laugh, but close. She said something like, "Oh, that's different," in the tone people use when they mean the opposite. Dr. Osi Bonsu looked up from her plate. She asked my mother which area of electrical work I was in. My mother, bless her, said she wasn't entirely sure, but that I worked on big commercial sites, had just gotten some major certification, and was up for some kind of government transit project. Dr. Osi Bonsu set down her fork. She asked if my mother meant the GO Transit expansion contract. My mother said she thought that might be it, yes. Dr. Osi Bonsu said that her firm was involved in the bidding process for that same contract, that they had been looking for qualified Red Seal journey persons with commercial site experience to bring on as leads. That someone matching my description had actually come up in internal conversations that week. She then turned to my sister and asked why I hadn't been invited today. My sister, to her credit or her detriment depending on how you look at it, told the truth. She said she thought it might be awkward, given the crowd. That my work might not fit in with the conversation, that she hadn't wanted things to be uncomfortable. The table went quiet in a way that my mother said she will remember for the rest of her life. Dr. Ose Bonsu did not raise her voice. She did not make a scene. She simply said, in a tone that was entirely pleasant and entirely devastating, that in her experience, the most interesting people at any table were the ones who actually built things. That a Red Seal electrician with federal contract experience was someone she'd want seated next to her at any dinner. And that it was a shame, genuinely, that I wasn't there. Spencer's aunt did not make any more small sounds after that. My sister called me that evening. She got 3 words into whatever she'd prepared to say before she started crying, which meant I had to wait a fairly long time before I understood what had happened. My mother called the next morning with the full version. 5 days after the shower, on a Thursday afternoon, I heard a knock at my door. I was home early because I'd taken a half day. There are perks to being the person they're about to make project lead. I opened the door to find my sister, my mother, and my sister's fiancé, Spencer, standing on my front step in the cold. Spencer looked like he was there because he'd been told he had to be. My mother looked like she hadn't slept. My sister looked like someone who had spent 5 days sitting with something uncomfortable, and finally stopped trying to make it go away. I let them in. I put the kettle on, because I was raised in a household where you offer people something hot when they come inside, even when those people have recently made you feel small. My sister talked first. She explained what had happened at the shower. She explained what Dr. Osi Bonsu had said. She kept looking at her hands while she talked, which meant she was embarrassed. Not just sorry. There's a difference, and I knew which one this was. Eventually, she looked up and said she owed me an apology that was bigger than what she was capable of giving right now, but she wanted to try. Spencer, to his credit, said he hadn't known about the conversation she'd had with me. He said if he had known, he would have said something. I believed him, mostly. My mother said she was sorry, too. She said she should have pushed back when my sister first mentioned not inviting me. She said she'd told herself it was my sister's event, and not her place to interfere, but that she knew that was an excuse for something easier than standing up for me, and that she regretted it. I let them finish. I poured the tea. And then I said, as evenly as I could manage, I passed my Red Seal 6 weeks ago. I've been waiting to tell everyone together, and the project lead position, the one Dr. Ose Bonsu mentioned, that came through in writing last Friday. The silence in my kitchen was one of the most clarifying moments of my adult life. Spencer asked what the project scope was. I told him. He went very quiet in the way that men go quiet when numbers are larger than they expected. My sister pressed her lips together. My mother made a small sound that was somewhere between proud and pained. I didn't gloat. I want to be clear about that, not because I wasn't tempted, but because it wouldn't have meant anything. The point wasn't to prove I was successful. The point was that my success had never been the issue. The issue was that my sister had looked at what I did every day and decided it was something to apologize for. I accepted her apology, not because it was complete, it wasn't, but because holding it in reserve would have cost me more than it cost her, and I do enough heavy lifting at work. What nobody said out loud, but what everyone in my kitchen understood. The thing my sister had been ashamed of was the exact thing that had put me in a room, professionally, with someone who could open doors I hadn't even known existed. She'd tried to make me smaller. She'd ended up drawing a map to somewhere better. A week after that, I got an email from Dr. Osi Bonsu's assistant asking if I'd be available for a call. We spoke for 40 minutes. She asked about my site experience, my certification, the specifics of my work on large-scale commercial builds. She was direct and precise and did not waste words, which I respect deeply in a person. At the end of the call, she said her firm was building a relationship with the prime contractor on the Go Transit expansion, and they were looking for strong site leads to bring in as partners, not employees, which is a different thing, contractually and financially. She said my name had come up more than once. I didn't tell my sister about that call for several weeks, not to be cruel, but because some things need to settle before they can be shared. When I finally told her, we were at my parents' kitchen table for Easter dinner, and she was quiet for a moment before she said she was genuinely glad for me. I think she meant it. We're still working on things, families do. Spencer's mother, the law firm partner, apologized to me at the engagement party 2 months later. She'd heard the full story from Spencer, and she sought me out specifically to say that the comment made at the shower had been dismissive and wrong. She said it with the directness of someone used to being precise about language, and I appreciated it. My sister and I are better now than we were before. Not because the hurt disappeared. It didn't. But because she stopped trying to explain it away and started trying to actually understand it. That's the slower, harder work, and she's doing it. The Go Transit contract started in May. I'm on site 4 days a week. My crew is 12 people. There are days when the scale of the thing is genuinely staggering. Electrical infrastructure that will serve hundreds of thousands of commuters. Systems that will run for decades. Work that will outlast everyone currently standing on that site. At the end of every shift, I drive home with the windows cracked even in the cold, the same way I always have. My boots are already getting worn down on the left heel. I smell like work. I'm 34 years old. I'm a Red Seal journey person and a project lead on a federal transit contract. I have never once been ashamed of what I do, and the one time someone tried to make me feel like I should be, the world had other plans.